to talk to, start with Janet. Janet, who is calling in from Florida. Janet, what's going on? You're live on Talk Heathen.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. It's my first time too, so I'm a big ball of anxiety, like you guys said.
Well, we are happy to assuage you of your anxiety as much as possible, but we are live and there are several hundred to thousand people watching, so no pressure. No
Very
pressure.
nice here, though.
It's pretty nice. You don't have to see them. That's the good thing, right? So anyway, what's going on, Janet?
That is it's a good thing. Well, I was telling your call screener that I'm a little bit different than probably the Christian that you typically get calling, in that I'm a Christian who believes that we actually don't have evidence. And I have been listening to a lot of these discussions with the atheists over the past month. And I have to tell you, I've probably learned more from the atheists than I have from a lot of Christians, which I know sounds really ironic, but they have, y'all have really forced me to examine my beliefs and to really look into why I believe what I believe. Most Christians are just like, because the Bible said so.
Sure.
And that's what we've been taught to say, basically. Yeah. And that we really can't back up our position. And so I love these opportunities because there's questions that I have, personally for me. I believe in Christianity because there has not been something that has convinced me not to.
Okay.
Yet, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Okay. A lot of it is so.
Go ahead. Keep going.
Go ahead.
Well, let's explore this a bit because, first of all, I should say I want to give you props for saying what you did, because I am a former Christian myself, and I agree with you 100%. When I first really started looking into what atheists had to say about Christianity, I was blown away by some of the stuff there. Like, I grew up my whole life in the church, and I was hearing some stuff for the first time and wondered, why aren't these discussions happening? Because a lot of these topics are hard, and a lot of them lead to uncomfortable conclusions. And I actually came to a similar conclusion that you did, which is that I don't think there's a lot of great evidence for God. In fact, in the last days of my Christianity, I identified with the label of Christian mystic, which sort of goes with this thought that there may not be physical evidence or there may not be historical evidence, but it's my personal experiences that justify my belief in Christianity. Now, eventually, I deconstructed some of those beliefs too, and obviously, I don't identify as a Christian anymore. But I do think it's very noble of you to call us and talk to us about it. That's a very big deal. So props to you for that.
I do have to echo that sentiment.
Yeah.
Introspection is hard, and that you have engaged in that already is fantastic,
100%.
Absolutely wonderful. And I am so fascinated in what you said about you have seen no evidence not to believe.
Right. Let's talk about that. So what does that mean exactly? Can you break that down for us?
I'll do my best.
Yeah.
There are so many people that I have listened to on different podcasts or lives. And when they go into the science of it, I'm really fascinated about the science of it. But I'm going to tell you, I was a preschool director, okay? So when you start talking about the origin of the universe, okay? Like, I like to get to the bottom of things, and it's so over my head that when I hear some of the atheists discuss, because they're very smart, I need somebody to dumb it down for me.
Okay.
I guess is the best way, okay? Because my brain goes to, okay, there has to be a beginning of something. And with when you're a Christian, there's a very clear beginning. It's
Sure.
Genesis 1:1, right? In the
Sure.
beginning, God made the heavens and the earth. And, I have 3 grown daughters, and they're all on their own journey. And I have one daughter who's very interested in the science aspect of it. She hasn't been able to dumb it down enough for me either, but we have a lot of discussions about this. So how do you help me understand what an atheist position would be on where everything started?
Sure. So
because I have a problem that something started on its own with nothing, without divine help. That's the best I can do.
No, that totally makes sense. And I think that's a very intuitive sort of conclusion that a lot of people come to. It's this kind of idea like, well, so everything comes from something else, so the universe has to come from something, right? And maybe that thing is God, right? Like that's a very intuitive argument to some people.
And we are inquisitive creatures by nature. Like,
sure.
We want to know.
There's a couple of problems with that. So first of all, talking about cosmology, right? I'm not a physicist. I'm not a cosmologist. Everything I understand is completely in layman's terms. I mean, like I've read popular science books, right? That's my expertise in the subject. So I can give you a very limited understanding of what most common. And by the way, atheists don't necessarily have to believe in like the Big Bang theory, for example. Like that can all atheism really addresses is whether or not a God exists or not. And in some cases in atheism, it doesn't even address that. It just means, do you believe that there is one, which is different from claiming the existence of something. The belief kind of adds a psychological element. But that aside, going back to this idea of the origins of things, right? When we talk about matter changing from other states of matter, right, we understand that as we understand our physical systems, energy and matter all still exist within the same system, right? Matter doesn't actually get destroyed. There is no energy. So some people take that and they say, well, it has to come from somewhere. And the thing is, we don't actually know if it actually does. Now, there's a lot that we kind of understand about the origins of the universe, but there's actually a lot that we don't. The funny thing about the Big Bang is that the actual bang part of it, like the very beginning, we really have no idea to even measure or understand that beyond what's called the Planck time length, which is the shortest amount of time we've been able to actually physically measure. We really don't know anything. We can tell you about the expansion of the universe, but we don't know its origin. So there is a big question mark there. So as far as how did that happen? How did the universe come to be completely honest with you, Janet, I have no stinking idea. And people smarter than me, I think, would agree with that. Now, that being said, does the Christian answer to this idea actually make any more sense? And I would argue it does not.
No.
What does the Christian narrative say? It says everything that we know of today started in 7 days. Does that match up with anything that we've come to understand in science? Not really. We understand the Earth being several billion years old, the universe being billions of years longer than that.
I mean, my thought on that, on the Genesis 1:1.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to be very well learned in cosmology to know that light came before the earth.
Yeah, sure.
Like, it's a pretty well-known thing. And
Yeah.
we're very sure of that. But
Yeah.
the Bible says otherwise. And I'm like, well, you've fallen at the first hurdle there, Chief.
Yeah.
So can you give me a better explanation?
Sure. And like our understanding of how stars are formed, how other planets are formed, I mean, it's out of order with what that's talked about. Now, some Christians will say, well, Genesis 1:1 doesn't talk about a literal 7 days, right? It's more of a metaphor for the description of the origins of the universe. But even that really falls apart when you look at it. Even if you say it is a metaphor, it gets some stuff out of order, right? Like, first of all, what does it mean to have a day or even a comprehension that when like the Earth isn't there or the sun isn't there to go around it, and life on Earth as well, obviously it evolved from millions of years, right? And the Bible doesn't give any account or description of that. So like it doesn't really match any scientific findings, It
doesn't. And one last thing I'd say, and then would love to hear what you have to say in return, is as a skeptic, my atheism comes from skepticism, like wanting to know what's true to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
And as a skeptic, you have to get real comfortable with 3 words. I don't know.
Exactly. Just to put a bow on this, right, is that we can't tell you how the universe came to be, and there's a lot of smarter people than us that also can't, but that doesn't mean that we should come to the Christian conclusion, right? That's really where we stand at. It doesn't make any more sense to me to follow the Christian line of thinking than it does for any other world religion, especially since, at least with what I know about the universe, it comes from people who've made observations, whereas a Bible story is exactly that. It's just a Bible story, right? There's nothing that suggests that the writers of Genesis had any particular knowledge or forethought about the universe's origins than I do, So anyway, that's our long answer to that. So we'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, that's super interesting and helpful. And I have learned so much, like I said, just about the observable universe. And, when you said that Christians just kind of, I know that Christians, some of them just take a hard line and go, nope, it just happened in 7 days, end of story. But you're right. There's things we observe that do not jive with that necessarily. Mm-hmm. So we have to admit as Christians that there's a huge area of science that we don't know about that, points to evolution and things like that. So I'm kind of in that middle ground, of...
Yeah.
Which,
Keep picking away at it, though. Like, don't stop questioning,
right.
But don't feel like you have to force yourself. And also don't lose hope, because just because we don't know now doesn't mean we won't ever know.
That's true.
That's true. Yeah. Somebody brought that up the other day when I was listening in on something. They're like, in 100 years, look how much more we know now than we knew 100 years ago, just about the universe. I mean, it's absolutely mind-blowing.
Right.
So
I also think it's important to point out, too, Janet, and sorry to interrupt you on that, is that these observations that we made, the more we know about the universe, it didn't come from studying the Bible more. It came from doing the hard work and writing papers and making observations. And for some people, that's troublesome because it goes against our preconceived narratives about what we already believe. I know it was troublesome for me to kind of deconstruct a lot of that, but it has huge implications theologically, right? Like if you are Jesus and you say, hey, I'm here to save you from your sins because Adam messed up, well, that implies that there's a literal Adam figure that existed maybe 1,000 or a couple thousand years ago. Yeah. And how does that make sense with everything else in the story, right? So to me, the most likely explanation is that it's exactly that. These are stories, these are ideas, these are popular ideas, sure, that have given comfort to people and have given people a sense of, purpose and a framework to work on. But it's not one that I think I can adopt because it just contradicts against everything else I know about the world, right? So that's why I'm not a Christian. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be one either. I know you're on your journey, but if you want to know why I'm not, that's why. And I think that's pretty convincing. At least it's convincing for me. So,
And what I'd say, go ahead.
It's really enlightening. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, please continue.
Oh, I just think it's really enlightening. Like I said, I have learned so much from the atheist community, quite honestly. And I really like hearing, especially from people who were in Christianity, because I think they expose a lot of holes that we have, a lot of gaps, a lot of weaknesses. And, it's either going to force you to really look into what you believe and you may be convinced even more strongly that you believe what you believe, or it's going to force you to be uncomfortable and address some things that are issues. And I am really comfortable addressing those things. And I think any more talking, probably for me, I'm going to be out of my depth.
Well, that is okay. We really appreciate.
I don't want.
No,
we got other callers and stuff.
We do have some other callers, but Janet, we love having conversations with folks like you because if we're honest, at least in my opinion, if more Christians were like yourself, shows like this probably wouldn't need to exist.
Absolutely.
Right?
I'd like to thank you personally for making my first call on Talk Heathen.
Yeah.
It's extremely enjoyable.
Oh, well, yeah. No, this was a great discussion. I really appreciate it, honestly. And just, I'm just going to keep searching, keep looking.
Keep watching, keep hearing what we have to say. And we'd love to check in with you, see how you are on your journey in the future. But for now, I am going to go ahead and let you go because we do have some other folks that want to talk to us. But thank you, Janet, for a great conversation. Jamie